50% of advertising is wasted. We just don't know which half is the expression that supersedes CTV in itself. Understanding begins at an app level. And almost without exception, we can see that an ad call is coming from a particular app. Beyond that, in terms of where the ad call is coming from contextually, there is a big signal deprivation across CTV. And basically people want to know where they're running, right? So we feel like this is an evolutionary situation. And what by that I mean, things are evolving fast. Different types of publishers are scaling up. So ad-supported CTV environments are becoming very popular. Streaming apps where you don't pay for the subscription, but you approve advertising, they're becoming more and more popular with the public. And as a result, advertising is becoming crucial to the ecosystem of CTV inventory. And for the most part, audiences are built based around historical behavior. Almost always you can find a contextual element to that behavior. If you want to buy accurately and if you want to report accurately, you need the signal. Having information that tells you that your ad budget was effectively invested in the ad placements that you wanted.
Welcome to Inside AI Digital Podcast. I'm your host, YJ. In each episode, we sit down with leaders from AI Digital and across the ad tech industry, talk about how AI is reshaping media strategy and digital activation. Joining me today is Andrew Morsy, VP of Global Sales at Peer39. For those who don't know, Peer39 has been a long time market leader in contextual intelligence, helping advertisers understand the environment their ads run in. And lately, they've been doing some really interesting stuff, bringing the same lens into CTV. So let's talk about CTV. Andrew, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, excited to be here. Nice to see you again.
So I want to start with CTV transparency. A few months back, I attended Marketecture Live in New York, and Mario Diaz, CEO of Peer39, he presented on this topic. A great presentation, by the way. One stat that really stuck with me is he said that roughly 60% of CTV ad calls come through blind, meaning limited or no content level metadata attached. So can you talk a little bit about why this is still such a big industry challenge, and what does it actually mean in practical terms for advertisers who are trying to buy quality CTV inventory?
I think it's important to start with a bit of an explanation around how we get to that data point. So the Peer39 product is integrated to bidders. So we see ad calls coming through from CTV environments. And what Mario was referring to was, if you're in our position as a data provider, as a classification engine, we are looking for signal from the supply that comes through. And the starting point for that in CTV is the app. Understanding begins at an app level. And almost without exception, we can see that an ad call is coming from a particular app. That's available. There is that level of transparency. But what he's referring to is that beyond that, in terms of where the ad call is coming from contextually, there is a big signal deprivation across CTV. And to ask the question around why, I think that it's important to understand that this isn't necessarily like automatically nefarious, right? This is just the relationship between sell side and buy side, just at a certain point in its evolution. Okay, so some publishers, CTV publishers, they're distributing their inventory, and they don't necessarily need, or they don't feel the need to share more information because they may have a significant brand equity or a value related to their brand, to their app, that means people will buy it anyway. However, what we see increasingly is that there's a tremendous demand for an understanding around the contextual placement that the ad call came from. Indeed, basically people want to know where they're running, right? So we feel like this is an evolutionary situation. What by that I mean, things are evolving fast. Different types of publishers are scaling up. So ad-supported CTV environments are becoming very popular. Streaming apps where you don't pay for the subscription, but you approve advertising, they're becoming more and more popular with the public. And as a result, advertising is becoming crucial to the ecosystem of CTV inventory. And what I mean by that specifically is vast inventory is growing, and premium publishers are having to respond to by sharing that level of transparency with the buy side.
Great. And I think we've heard a lot of that, especially within recent upfronts across different streaming platforms, emphasizing emphasizing the need for premium and quality inventory and transparency and attributions. And then we'll definitely get to that in a little bit. We get a lot of questions about, am I actually showing up where I think I am in terms of inventory that I buy? And on the digital side, we've all been there where, we're sitting down, refreshing publisher websites 100 times just to see if we can spot our own ads. So, between supply path, metadata challenges on both demand and supply side, how should marketers be thinking about measuring CTV in terms of inventory quality beyond metrics like CPM and video completion rates?
Really good question. It depends on your perspective. I'll talk to ours. We've lent into the idea that transparency is something that advertisers value, and our data set to provide transparency through our analytics, and then to take advantage of that transparency by making the data points, the signal that you see in the analytics addressable through pre-bid data. And to ask the question around how do you think about quality, for us, it's an interesting position to be in, because if you look at historically how quality was defined, a lot of it was very emotional, really, like an emotional reaction to whether an application or publisher was a quality environment, like should I be in this environment? But then you have the practicalities of what makes something valuable, and from a programmatic buying perspective, signal is something that dramatically improves the value of an ad call. So if you're sharing data with the buyer around the content that they're running on, if you're sharing information around the program genre, the channel genre, and allowing the buyer to have a full picture of where they're running, not just, that they're running inside an entire ecosystem of supply, but specifically where they're running in that ecosystem. That in itself is an indicator of a quality impression for us. And we build our product out accordingly to kind of try and emphasize the fact that you can have an emotional reaction to something being quality, and a lot of that is endemic to people's perceptions. But then you've got practicalities, like if you want to buy accurately and if you want to report accurately, you need the signal. And that signal is something that I would argue, and certainly we position ourselves as a company to say that is a large part of what makes quality piece of inventory.
Let's now shift a little bit to targeting. A lot of advertisers still default to broad CTV buys like demo, genre, or run-of-network inventory for scale, and many other reasons. What CTV capabilities do you think advertisers are currently underutilizing today, and what could really help move the needle in terms of performance and efficiency?
So with targeting CTV, we feel like clients are still very much coming to the table with their established practices. So the majority of CTV with some kind of audience data behind it. We sit a different table. So we're a contextual business. We look at content and we build a product set based around contextual signals. So clearly when we're asked this kind of question, we steer the thinking towards that perspective. Examples where we see clients focusing would be, we have a political cycle, which I'll use as an example in the US, which, runs every 2 to 4 years. And essentially one of the things that comes up is how do I steer campaigns accordingly using data on CTV, where a lot of political advertising is invested. A lot of it is TV based rather than banners and other formats. And an example would be, we've got categories that focus on local news. So categories where clients can specifically use our data to target entire channel sets, which are the local news classification, in order to reach the particular type end user that they want. Because contextual is ultimately a proxy for who's reading the content or who's viewing the content, rather in the case of CTV. So that's an example, I think, where people are kind of coming to understand what's possible within the CTV landscape beyond just buying against an audience, as you said correctly, that demographic approach, not just more granular, but more native to what TV is about. TV is all about the content. And at the end of the day, if you're going to run ads on TVs, then what better than making sure that your ad makes sense adjacently to the content that it's running on? And, ergo, you want to get your ads placed in the right environment. So local news is something we've seen really grow in popularity for advertisers, specifically ones that have got those political campaigns that they want to push in certain areas.
This is such a good point, because I feel like so much of the focus on targeting is at a user level that people forget the effectiveness of contextual alignment. And there are a lot of studies done, obviously, in the marketplace that actually proves that contextual targeting drives oftentimes better performance.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about CTV today. I would say that if one thinks about audiences, the way that the audiences are built is kind of important discussion point. And for the most part, audiences are built based around, historical behavior. What has that audience member, or what has that audience, member of that cohort, if you will, done historically to be justified as being part of that audience? Almost always you can find a contextual element to that behavior, right? So on the web, it would be, pages that you visited, ads that you've clicked, keywords that you've inputted. They all provide context, which means you're bucketed as an audience member. I think with CTV, the majority of the data that's brought to CTV environments, as I see it, is using zip4 or location-based data. And that's because of the addressability of that kind of data across an app environment. And that still, though, takes into account, where the ads are running, and, real world location is context, right? So if I am on Wardour Street in London, which is where I am now, then there's a contextual intelligence to that. Again, a large part of our taxonomy for CTV is built around location signals as well, which, provides demographics and other types of insights.
I want to dig into measurement. Performance attribution was probably one of the biggest themes this year at Upfront. Some of the keywords include outcomes, accountability, incrementality, and real business impact. So from your perspective, what should the advertisers be thinking about in terms of measuring CTV performance?
I think measurement is much bigger than just CTV. That's not to deflect the question entirely, but it's an important opening statement. You look at all forms of advertising on and offline, and measurement becomes pretty much, if not the first, the second or third talking point, really. 50% of advertising is wasted. We just don't know which half, is the expression that supersedes CTV in itself. So I think it's important to approach CTV measurement and performance measurement with a degree of healthy optimism that we can reach better status quo than we have, or depending on where you are in your brand's or agency's journey, how do you improve the status quo for you? Not everyone's at the same starting point. To be specific, some of the things that we've seen, although we don't necessarily play in that space at the moment, there are companies and there are teams that are using smart technology and smart relationships to measure conversions that are happening using location or signals that tie together exposure on one screen through to a conversion, either at an offline location or in an online environment. So there are ways to tie together conversions for specific types of advertisers. There would be probably an easier starting point, which is, making sure that you're happy with the performance of your campaigns and the measurement of your campaigns going down to the creative performance level. That's where our technology sits today in CTV. And, for us, performance can be tied back to the quality of the environment, understanding where it ran, and basically having information that tells you that your ad budget was effectively invested in the placements that you wanted. You got the ad experience that you set out to achieve. I think conversion data and measurement through to sale, or proving that this exposure to this CTV advert led to this conversion in an offline or online environment, it's something that can be done through dedicated relationships and through certain types of technology. I think most clients would be wise to understand what are they actually the problem they're looking to solve, and is there lower hanging fruit? But if you do go down that route, as I said, one of the things that we've seen, effectively executed is tracking exposure through to conversion point based on location really being the primary signal that ties together the conversions.
And I love that you mentioned about needing good partnerships, whether it is for activation or measurement. Before we wrap up, I want to touch on our relationship between Peer39 and AI Digital. Obviously, we worked together for quite some time and run a number of successful campaigns. What makes our partnership work, and where does the partnership create the most value for our advertisers?
I worked on this relationship directly. This isn't something that was handled through a teammate. This was me. And, I have a genuine understanding of what the relationship. I think, fundamentally, the relationship exists between people, right? So the people that we've engaged with at AI Digital, one of them was a former colleague. He showed great enthusiasm in getting Peer39 amplified within AI Digital because he had worked with Peer39 at the company that he and I used to work at together. And that kind of snowballed, right? So we were introduced to the head of your operations team. She's based in Europe. We set up educational calls to explain why our product would be valuable. And then I think what was really clear from the start was that there was a natural entrepreneurial approach from the AI Digital team to say, this could be something that really elevates us and gives our clients greater opportunity. So at that point, it really became more about how AI Digital dedicated resource internally to explore what we provide. And practically speaking, that meant that we activated pilots on campaigns. We did some A/B testing to prove out some of the value propositions that we talked about in our initial pitches to the AI Digital team. And the outcome really for advertisers has been, greater economic and operational efficiency on the CTV campaigns that have used our data. Levels of insight have risen because the analytics that we provide, which is easy for clients to access and doesn't cost anything to activate. So it's been a combination of a harmonious relationship, a very entrepreneurial approach to working with Peer39 from the AI Digital team, and that collective desire to achieve a great outcome together. And we're in a really nice position now going into middle of the year, second half of the year, where the amount of campaigns that we're running is scaling. We have a larger number of proof points internally and a good flow of campaign opportunities coming through. So overall, it's something we can be really, really proud of.
Thanks again for joining us and sharing your perspective. I really enjoyed our conversation as always. And to everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back with more conversation and inside AI Digital.